To think that not even a month ago the thought of these Sydney Roosters playing finals footy was, let's be quite final once again. They are a champion side. For as much as there's been criticism around guys like Tedesco, like Luke Keary, for as much as we've talked about the form of guys like Lindsay Collins, Brandon Smith, Joey Manu, these champion teams always find a way. And the Cronulla Sharks, they definitely blew it tonight, but the Sydney Roosters are into the semi-finals. They will take on the Melbourne Storm in the battle of the two most dominant franchises of the NRL era. The Sydney Roosters picking up a 13-12 win over the Cronulla Sharks at Shark Park. And Cronulla, their season comes to an end in what was really an up and down season. We'll get to them in a minute, because that is one of, if not the gutsiest win I've seen from the Sydney Roosters, certainly in a finals match for quite some time. And you know, guess what? Surprisingly, they're not exactly new to finals. This is a team that's missed the finals once in a decade. 2016 when they came second last. A team that's missed finals once in a decade. So to call this the gutsiest win they've had in a finals game is a huge compliment. It's one it's hard to argue with. Down 6-0. To be fair, it looked like they couldn't score a point in that first half. Then they go ahead and lose Suoliti, who was almost their best player in the first half. Joey Manu, who was the best player for the Roosters until the point he got injured. And Billy Smith did sort of struggle in that first half. But to lose both your centres and one of your wingers, having to makeshift Sandon Smith to fullback because James Tedesco, your best player, your captain, was sent to the sin bin. You're playing at Shark Park, a team that finished higher than you want to allow. This was a team that, like I said at the beginning of the video, laughable for us to even consider them playing finals footy a month ago, and they're into a semi-final because these champion teams, these champion franchises, they always find a way. And they didn't help themselves either, the Roosters, especially in that first half. Only a 74% completion rate for the entire match, and that's certainly improved in the second half. And when you look at all the stats, the Sharks had more running meters, more post-contact meters, the line breaks were even, passes, all that sort of jazz, more kicks. Just, I can't believe it. How are we sitting here talking about the Sydney Roosters have won? They scored this set after James Tedesco was sin-binned, and they blew two. Blake, Brayley, Jesse Ramian in Australia, because they forgot that you have to put the ball down. They forgot that you had to put the ball down on the try line. They forgot how to put the ball down. It's going to take so much out of them, and I'll just say it right now. I think the Storm do win next week, because this Roosters side is going to be so depleted. They're already without Hargraves. I doubt Suoliti's going to play. I think the 11-day stand-down's going to hurt him. Manu's done his hammy, so his season's pretty much gone, unless they want to risk him again. Billy Smith will play, but they've lost so many players to injury already. Maybe Daniel Tupou might return for him, but the Melbourne Storm have the extra day. But let's not talk about that, because the Sydney Roosters fans, I talked about Brisbane fans deserve to be sucked off. So do you boys, because that was an insane comeback. Not from a scoreline perspective, but just from a vibe perspective, because they were gone. They were absolutely gone, and as for as good as the Roosters were, God, they Sharks blew it. How the heck did the Cronulla Sharks lose that game? They're up 12-6. Tedesco goes to the sin. They had two chances. All Ramian and Bradley had to do was put the ball down, and they're up 24-6. And when they're up 12-6, I feel like the game was done because the Roosters had nothing in the gas tank. And yet the Sydney Roosters found a way to win. I know I sit here and the onus is always on the halfback. It always is, and I understand that it usually has to be. We give it to Cleary in Origin no matter how well he plays because he's the halfback, and unfortunately that's the way it happens. But I can't sit here and have anyone giving it to Nico Hines tonight. Yes, have the jokes, have the can't win a finals game, because guess what? Unfortunately, that's still the case. And that's the only reason I want the Sharks to win. I'm going to sit here and say it. I don't care, Roosters fans. Call me a dickhead in the comments. But I was going for the Sharks just purely on Nicho Hynes finally getting this monkey off the back. And he was so good. Set up both their tries, set up the break on the left-hand side, which Brayley forgot that he was playing NRL, not NFL. You could make the argument that he could have stood further back for the drop goals, but again, just charge downs. Unfortunately, the Cronulla Sharks, they failed to generate any play the ball speed. They looked good when Toby Rudolph was on the field. I thought he was the Cronulla Sharks' best forward. God, they missed Hamlin ULA. It's going to be interesting to see how they go next year because the Cronulla Sharks, what do you do? This year was a bit disappointing, ups and downs. To fight back from where they were about a month ago, like the Sydney Roosters. They said in the promo for Channel 9 that these were two teams playing finals footy that we thought would in discussions to barely miss the bottom four a month ago, and they were absolutely correct. But that same old adage with the Sharks, they can't win finals games. They're 0-6 in the last 6 finals games now. That is a horrible record. Craig's 0-3, Nicho's 0-3, as good as Nicho Hynes was tonight. And if you're going to give him shit for his individual performance, then get your mind out of the toilet you are currently in, friend. But the Cronulla Sharks absolutely blew it. The Sydney Roosters, they found a way. They're a champion team. Lindsay Collins is an absolute weapon. I know his stats probably won't jump out. In fact, I'll just read them out because maybe his stats were insane. He only had 70 run meters off 8 runs, but he played 60 minutes. He made how many tackles? He didn't make a single tackle break. Well, there you go. He made 37 tackles. He missed 3. But every break the Sharks made, he was there. Every kick chase, he was there. He's just there all the time. Billy Slater, maybe he's just always done it, and I haven't noticed it since post this Origin series, where in my opinion probably could have pipped Ruben Cotter for player of the series. But oh my God, that bloke is an absolute freak. But the Sydney Roosters, congratulations to you. 3-0 the week. Joey Martin was absolutely outstanding. They're going to miss him big time. I think it's much easier to replace someone during a game, but that doesn't make their win any less impressive. That is the best win of the finals so far. It's easily the worst game, and we'll talk about it later because I don't want to sour the mood, but in 2024. And in the earlier game, the second qualifying final, it is, of course, the Penrith Panthers. They are into the preliminary final. They will play either the Storm or the Roosters in 2 weeks' time at Accor Stadium. And, I thought the Broncos might fall victim to this, but the Warriors just didn't handle the occasion very well. They tried their absolute backside off. There's no denying that. That was a physical as fuck rugby league match. Watching the beginning of that game bloody hurt me, and I was just sitting on the couch in me budgies. But the Warriors' completion rate, ever since Montoya made that error, I think it was the second set they received the kick, because they looked good, the Warriors. They were belting him in their first 2 sets, and then as soon as that happened, they just crumbled. They couldn't handle him. They definitely defended better than most teams would. If you read the stats at halftime, the Penrith had 70% possessions, maybe not that much, but probably 65%. They'd run for nearly double their meters. And you look at that, it reminds me of the Manly game where they're up 36-0 over us at halftime. So for the Warriors to be only down 20-0, clearly having to resort to the penalty goal in halftime, shows how brave the Warriors are, shows why they're a top 4 side, and they didn't have Sean Johnson. So it's like trying to criticise Manly without Turbo, South without Trell, even the Warriors without Sean Johnson. It's hard to criticise. You put them in the same realm. Sharks without Hynes. He's that sort of a player. He's going to be the Dally M medalist, for Christ's sake. And if he's not, then we need to have a look at one of the great robberies of all time. But for as poor as the Warriors were, and Andrew Webster was very critical and deservingly so, they did not handle the occasion at all. The Penrith Panthers showed their finals experience at an exhibition at the Rockhampton Museum. I don't know why I said Rockhampton, but it could be any museum. Stick it at the Sex Museum in Amsterdam for all I care, because that's how good their finals experience that they proved was. Holy heckers, I said it before, but if we don't get a Penrith Broncos grand final, it'll be one of the great rugby league robberies, because God, these two just have been the best teams all year. And we'll get into it another time, because I'd love for the Warriors to turn it around, and I'm not writing them off by any means. Sean Johnson's a 30-point difference. It's like I just said, it's like criticising Manly without Turbo, Rabbitohs without Trell, even the Roosters without Tedesco, and they just did that. So I keep rambling because there's not much to talk about this game. Penrith kind of did what many of us thought. As much as Up the Waz fever was certainly in season, I think we all expected that sort of result. So I hope the Warriors can turn it around. I think they will. I see them winning next week. Same with the Melbourne Storm. But that is a video for a different time. The Penrith Panthers have the week off. They will play either the Storm or the Roosters. Shout out to the Roosters. What a gutsy win. Hainsey's vlog's going to be insane. So go check that out if you haven't already. And guess what, Hainsey? If you don't watch this video, then screw you, buddy. But everyone, smash that like button. Leave a comment down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'm going to go to bed because I get to see cage fighting tomorrow. Not cockfighting, cage fighting. Friday Night Footy.